And it's my pleasure to welcome in here today on UAP Representative Eric Burlison from Missouri. My first time actually having on a member of Congress, and this has been a goal of mine for a while. So, Representative Burlison, thanks so much for coming on to UAP here.
Yeah, thanks, Stephen. It's good to be on. I am a subscriber and a listener, so good to be on.
That's awesome. Thank you. All right, now I'll ask you this. I'll put you on the spot real quick before we get into the meat of the conversation. Are there any other members of Congress listening to UAP? Are you spreading the word, or how's it looking over there?
I don't know. I don't know what's on their particular podcast list.
You mean you don't sit at lunch with Nancy Mace and Tim Burchett and talk about the latest episode of UAP? I mean, come on. What's going on? No, it's I'm glad to hear that. It's really cool, and I'm happy to have you on here because there's a lot that I would love to talk to you about. I know our time is limited, so I'll be able to try to fit as much as I can in here with you today.
Okay.
That said, let's go ahead and start off, right at the top when it comes to the Transparency Task Force that's, that you're on with Representative Luna and Representative Comer. I know we just mentioned Tim Burchett, Nancy Mace. I believe Lauren Boebert is in there as well. You can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, she is. Yeah.
So a lot of you, from what I always like to refer to as the UAP caucus, are now part of this Transparency Task Force. So first off, how do you think that's going so far in your estimation? And where do you want to see it go in the next, say, couple of months?
Yeah, I would say the task force is being, led by someone who's diligent. She's absolutely fearless and wants to I think that she has a very strong appetite for getting as much done as possible within the next 6 months. But Anna Paulina Luna is doing a great job. I think that we're already experiencing some of the setbacks that that the Oversight Committee has seen. I think we're seeing that firsthand as we try to arrange meetings, get witnesses and things like that. So she wanted to start with the JFK files because she wants to follow the timeline of the Trump administration and what their release is. We've seen that what happened yesterday was very disappointing when you just rely on the bureaucracy to release the information. So I think that we're going to have to be more creative. And I'll just be frank, I think that this was a botched effort, this first JFK file release. And it was done so because you have administration coming in. They didn't know what files that they had. Pam Bondi knew she had the JFK files or had the files on her desk. We're told that those were the files on her desk. But when she actually got sworn in, after she had already told the world that she has them on her desk, it wasn't until she read through them and realized that there was really nothing new there. So, and apparently a whistleblower came forward, but because she had telegraphed to the world that she was going to release these very shortly, she ended up having to release them, and then did so without cooperating with the Disclosure Task Force, without really much cooperation. And so I think that we can do better. We can help shepherd these disclosures along, and that it really underscores why the task force is needed. We need to be a diligent group, using every resource we can to try to get the real documents, and then B, making sure that we release everything that we can.
And we're talking about the Epstein files, right?
Yes, the Epstein files. Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure, because we were saying JFK. I was like, wait, whoa, did I miss something? So it's one.
Yeah. Now JFK files are gonna come. We're gonna come first, but then Pam had decided to jump to the Epstein files because she had publicly said that they were on her desk. So we were planning. I think that it was a little bit premature, but hopefully we get the full list.
So do we just look at that, Eric, as and do you mind if I call you Eric, by the way? I don't okay, disrespectful by any means. So when we look at that situation, do we look at that as like a learning experience for kind of everybody involved, saying, hey, maybe we do need to actually have a little bit more cooperation through the channels and talk to each other, everybody be on the same page?
Yeah, I think that the thing that I found within the government is that, and I'm from the private sector. I was worked as software consulting, in essence was a project manager. and nobody manages anything like a project on Capitol Hill. It's very disjointed, very unorganized process, and that's what's infuriating to me. And while I may not be Tim Burchett and as much of an enthusiast on these topics as some people, I believe that we need to bring some seriousness to it. We need to bring an organized, thoughtful process, something that I think the private sector would expect, and that I think that will help us go about a more deliberative process of identifying the information, getting the source documents, and then helping us disclose.
So, I mean, can we look at the Epstein situation as kind of like a learning curve for moving forward with UAP a little bit? I mean, I don't know, if just to try to take some good out of it as far as, a tough situation that you guys are going through right now to try to figure all this out and trying to work together. Is that, kind of showing you what you're going to be up against when you go, towards the UAP files as well?
Yeah, it does. Now, I will say, I think that it's a good thing and I think that the process going forward should be that as we discover new documents, we need to be releasing them as quickly as possible rather than trying to hold on to them. And so I think that, but what we need to do is set expectations as to what the documents are that we've discovered, so that people don't anticipate something that is not really there.
Yeah.
So
it's I want to go back a little bit to November, I believe, right? Early mid-November. I was privileged enough to be able to be at the hearing where you guys were talking with Tim Gallaudet and Salou Elizondo, along with the other witnesses there that day. I waited in line like everybody else and waited in the cold to get in there and have a seat inside the hearing. So it truly was a privilege to be there and witness that as it went down. And there was something that Nancy Mace said that stuck with me then as she started the hearing and she was reading the documents about the secret project that kind of came out about, the crash retrievals and everything. And she was kind of going through that. And she said, there are people who don't want me to read this or don't want us to even have this hearing today. I mean, I remember that you guys were going through a lot of blowback to even get that hearing on the books and make it happen. So my question, Eric, is who are those people that are trying to stop you guys from uncovering the truth with all these situations, but especially with UAP?
Yeah, there truly is a swamp and a deep state, and a lot of it is coming from people that are connected to the intelligence community, and I'm using those words, specifically, but people within Congress who have a very cozy relationship with the intelligence community, and they're in positions of authority where they can block us from getting people to come forward and testify. And so without saying, any names, there's some members who have been, I will say, Mike Turner for a long time was blocking us. He was the intelligence chairman. And back in November, he was the intelligence chair. He had a lot of times when we were trying to get people to come forward and testify, whether it's in a SCIF or in a hearing, Turner had the authority to deny that. And so in addition, you have in addition to that, just direct, blocking of information, you have a general posture from leadership and people within the building that don't want to focus on this as a topic because they don't think it's a serious topic. They think it undermines the legitimacy of our other research efforts. So, and I'm not, no, it was never overtly said, but you could definitely tell the posture of that. While Comer and his office has been extremely helpful, and he wants to, I think he's done more than anybody else as a chairman to try to help us get to this information. He's taking an entire committee that's focused on finding, that are attorneys that are focused on finding financial fraud and other, business related issues. They're not familiar with the intelligence community or with the whole process of disclosure when it comes to this topic or anything related to the military industrial complex. So we're stretching the skill set of some people that are very talented in that office, but it certainly is not what they were hired to do, if that makes sense. And so
Yeah.
just that, and there's just a general posture, from leadership. I think Mike Johnson, I think has been resonant to try to give us much access. He's very cautious in that regard. So if that explains the situation that we're in.
Yeah, no, I think that paints a pretty good picture, and I kind of get the idea, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but it almost seems like there's still a hanging stigma about this conversation over Congress. Like some of Congress, yourself included, and some of the other representatives that we've mentioned as on the transparency task force, they're of the mindset of this is a serious issue. We should look into this. There's something happening. We need to know what it is. We need to tell the American people what's happening. And then there's another side that says, you guys are crazy with this alien stuff. I mean, am I off on that, or is that kind of the back and forth?
I think we're moving the needle. We're absolutely moving the needle into making this a more acceptable topic. But I think that we still have got, Congress, there's a reason why it takes an act of Congress, because it's an impossible task to get Congress to do anything.
Right. So just kind of like you said, moving the needle, moving the conversation forward. And I think that's what the hearings have done. Do you feel like the two hearings that you guys have been able to have been able to move that needle and have been able to move the conversation forward in DC?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first hearing with David Grush and Ryan Graves, and I thought that meeting was very good, very insightful. I'm still very cautious about the information, and trying to be very, very analytical, keep that skeptic attitude and that mindset, because I think that this topic deserves it. The American people deserve someone that's not going to jump to irrational conclusions. So we had great testimony from people that were very credible witnesses, and then we followed it up with additional testimony from people that were also extremely credible. And so I was frustrated that we did not have the whistleblower himself or herself that Michael Schellenberger was interviewing. Schellenberger was a great witness and does a great job as a journalist, but I'm kind of getting sick and tired of hearing about things secondhand, right? Even much of what Grush was talking about was secondhand conversation. And so now he's told me, I think he said so in the committee, that there's more that he could say firsthand if we can get him into a skiff. And so ever since that first hearing, I've been trying to get David Grush, figure out a way to get him into a skiff. We've been doing some research, and I think we're getting closer to figuring out how we can make that happen.
Yeah, I'm sure, this, I probably don't have to tell you, but just through the channels of the, different people that I talk to, there's a lot that David Grush knows that he hasn't been able to put out into the public. So hopefully that can happen, because.
And I specifically said to Anna and the team, when it comes to the UFO stuff, I said, I think really we need to get all of the interested parties in a room for an extended period of time, because generally speaking, this is what happens. We bring in Arrow, we get one story from Arrow, then we bring in somebody from the Office of Inspector General, and we get their perspective, and then and each time we identify, okay, what you're saying does not line up with what the testimony was in the hearing. And honestly, just from getting those perspectives, I can actually see a path in which both believe that they are right, but also and are telling the truth, but there's a little bit of falsehood in what they're telling, if that makes sense. So in other words, people may see something or have a conversation and believe and jump to the conclusion that it's a certain thing, when if you truly investigate it and you understood it from a different perspective, you would see it completely differently. But that being said, I think until we get everybody in the same room, in the same skiff, then we can figure out who's telling the truth or what the truth really is, right? Because you'll get multiple perspectives at the same topic, and we'll be able to ascertain what's real. And I think that the other thing is that they'll hold each other accountable for sure.
Boy, I know it has to be in a skiff, but man, I would love to see a video of that and have that be on the cameras, because that would be a meeting like that would truly be something to behold. Let me ask you this: if there is a third hearing, I know March 26th, I believe. Do I have that date right? That Representative Luna announced for a hearing that you guys were going to do about all the transparency task force dealings, March 26th.
I'm not sure what the topic of that first hearing is going to be. I believe that it's going to be JFK files.
Okay.
That was the first topic that we were on track to go after. And then Epstein files were supposed to be slated a little bit later. That's why this Pam Bondi thing it was a little bit of a hiccup.
Gotcha. Okay. So with that in mind, on let's say a third UAP hearing down the road, whenever that might be, is there a name that just you, Representative Eric Burlison, is there a name that kind of floats around in your head, you say, that you haven't had on a witness stand yet, to say, boy, I would really love to talk to this person at the next hearing? And would that name match someone you want to talk to in a skiff? Are they the same?
So there are people that that I've been working with Grush and with some others that we've identified. So first, what I want to do is have a skiff hearing with some individuals, and then I think that we can subpoena and bring forward some people that I think we're at a place where we need to bring forward people that we need to compel to come before the committee and tell the American people what's going on. So that's where I think that we need to get to is to get to that point. But Grush has been really good at helping me walk through, a strategy of how to get to that point.
So there are some behind the scenes dealings currently that you're going through to try to where you're working with David Grush to try to figure out basically what is the next move and who to talk to.
That's right.
Okay. And so with
I
that,
think that Anna Polina Luna has been very gracious. She's kind of let me take that kind of as a role on her task force, and so I'm happy to do what I can to help.
And that's fantastic. So you're focusing on the UAP issue then? That's kind of
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now is anyone else focusing on that with you as like their number one project, or are you the UAP guy on the transparency task force?
I think that Tim Burchett is obviously very heavily involved, but when it comes to organizing right now at this point, that's what I've been tasked with is to try to put together a plan.
Okay. So I guess with that in mind, I mean, are you thinking, is 2025 a realistic year where there would be a third UAP hearing, or is this?
I think yes, we will probably have a hearing. I mean, it's very, very likely that we will have a hearing. And if you've got, I would love to do a series of hearings, but ultimately my end goal is to get some of these individuals that we've identified that still work for the federal government or still, we're part of these programs, to have to come forward and under oath, tell us what was going on. I think that's the end goal, but there's no reason why we shouldn't have a series of hearings. And for some people, we don't necessarily need to have an official hearing. We could have field hearings, or like a member hearing. That way we can move a lot faster and have more regular meetings. Now under a member meeting or a field hearing, people are not under oath, but it doesn't mean that we can't try to get at least some information.
Sure. And so when we talk about a series, that's actually a pretty big deal, because I know a lot of people have clamored for that. I think Stephen Bassett, who I'm sure you're familiar with there in DC, I've spoken to him a couple of times here on UAP, and he's even talked about, Congress should try to get together like a 3-day hearing. So is that kind of like the end goal for you? Is that something you want to try to put together?
We'll see. And so if you've got people, if there are people who have any ideas on who we need to have in a series of hearings, then please reach out to my office, and we would love to hear what your ideas are.
Yeah, that's great. On the transparency task force abilities, this question I know has been posed before, and I think it's been even answered a couple of times, but it's still kind of murky. So I want to bring it to you. What are the powers of the transparency task force? Can you A, subpoena, and can you B, declassify?
We cannot declassify. We are not the agency that can declassify. We can put the pressure on the agency to declassify, but we do have subpoena power. It has to go through the chairman, Mr. Jamie Comer, and then it has to get approval by the speaker. But we can subpoena people. We do that, have that authority through the oversight committee, and the oversight chairman is unique in that regard. I think he and the judiciary chairman are the only two that have subpoena power in Congress.
I know we only got a few minutes left here, Eric, and I have like 17 million other questions. But
Yeah.
do you guys have the president's ear on this? How interested is President Trump on this? I know that the administration is moving at light speed at this point, but is this a topic that comes up in his briefings or meetings or his interests?
So I will say I've had limited conversations with Donald Trump. And so in those limited conversations, most of it, I have not had a chance to bring this up, and don't want to divert the topic that the meeting was about, if that makes sense.
Sure.
To just throw a completely, monkey wrench into the conversation. That being said, I have reached out to people within the Trump administration, within his inner circle, Stephen Miller, and some of the other policy contacts that we have, and have made it clear that I would like their help in this regard. I've also reached out to Mike Waltz, have on multiple occasions, trying to make it clear that this is I need his help in this regard.
Okay. No, very good. How about Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson? I know you mentioned as far as getting clearance through the speaker for subpoenas and things of that nature. Is Mike Johnson, is he willing to cooperate with an issue like this?
I think to some extent, yes. This is certainly not his focus. And he truly has got a lot on his hands. I mean, getting this reconciliation package to the floor and passed took everything that they possibly could get. And it's going to take everything to get the actual package to the Senate. It's going to take everything the speaker has. So for him, he does not have time for this, but I don't think that it means that he's going to block us.
Okay. So if it comes up, if it's something that ends up happening, it's a conversation he's willing to have, at least.
Yes. And then I think you've also got, a great new chairman of intelligence, Rick Crawford. I think that if I would encourage the UAP community to, reach out to him and his office and let him know how important it is for him to be helpful in this process.
Very cool. Real quick before we go, Eric, I wanted to get this question in there before we were done. Have you ever had a personal experience, something you saw in the sky that you thought was strange, anything like that? And how did you become interested in the topic in the first place?
I have not had any personal experience, and so I can't speak to that. But I just am interested in general. I'm a nerd. I love to study science and physics, and I personally the advanced science about what is behind what we're seeing is what intrigues me more than anything, regardless of whether it's of human origin or non-human origin. That's what intrigues me the most, and so that's what draws me to this topic.
Would you guys be willing to have conversations in a hearing about, things like, again, this might be a stigma, this might have not a cliche, but kind of like a cloud around it, things like 0 point energy, free energy, things of that nature that might actually be part of the technology about how these UAP even operate?
Yes, I would. That to me is really a fascinating topic, and want to bring forward people. I have my own subcommittee that I'm the chairman of, and a lot of my hearings are about advanced manufacturing, AI, uh, uh, small nuclear reactors, everything that we know of that's advanced, quantum computing. That is the committee that I'm chairing in oversight, and so I'm trying to push the envelope there on conventional, like, things that we know are in our, in the public space. But when it comes to this task force, hopefully we can bring forward some people that will give us a glimpse as to what has not been disclosed, at least a broad sense of understanding of what's out there.
That's fantastic. I wish we had more time, Eric. Hopefully I can have you on again sometime in the future. And
Absolutely.
yeah, no, it's awesome. I appreciate it. And I would also love to get on, if you don't mind spreading the word. I'd love to have on Tim Burchett, Nancy Mace, Representative Luna, all of your, cohorts in Congress down the line. That would be great to be able to talk to all of you here on UAP at some point.
Yep. Happy to make that connection.
Awesome. Representative Eric Burlison, thank you so much for joining UAP here today. It was a true pleasure.
Thank you, Stephen.